I'd like to talk about a current issue in our city of Tallahassee. There is a plan being developed right now to create a large development in southeast Tallahassee covering the largest parcel of unprotected land in the city of Tallahassee. What I mean by unprotected is land that is forested and has natural ecosystems on it that is not currently protected in a park or by a conservation group like the Nature Conservancy or something like that. So this parcel, given its unprotected state, it's currently facing the threat of development. Now, as people who live in the city of Tallahassee, we know that we live in the city of trees. Our city appreciates our trees. We have specific ordinances to protect those trees. We appreciate our canopy roads. This is a part of what defines our community, our parks, our trails. And when there are threats to those things, if those threats are out of character, we need to consider how changes to that sort of character of Tallahassee would affect the place we live. At the moment, there is a threat facing Tallahassee, facing this landscape of Tallahassee, that would change the character of the city. So if you look at Tallahassee, for a developed town, it's actually surprisingly green. And if you draw your attention around the city, the center of the city is a little less developed. But as you move to the southeast portion of town, you see a distinct green block. That block has been owned by the English family for over 100 years, and it is the largest undeveloped block. There are multiple parcels in that block, but it is an obvious forest in a sea of development. At the moment, there are a number of zoning board decisions in front of the city to develop the vast majority of the property owned by the English family. Specifically, the most time-pressing consideration is there's a proposal in front that's going to go to the commissioners next Tuesday at 5 p.m. to consider rezoning the entire property, which would change the zoning to mixed residential. So most of this property is going to turn into neighborhoods. Some of it's going to turn into apartment complexes and office complexes and some storefront areas, but the vast majority of it's going to be residential housing. And this is a significant change given the size of that forested parcel. And a number of concerned citizens, including myself, have some concerns about that property, about like sort of the course of that development that I'll elaborate on in the next couple slides. In addition, there are a number of components of that development plan that are actually more advanced. So there's one apartment complex that's actually being permitted right now that's on Blairstone Road on the south side, relatively near the Publix. And that plan is in front of the city, and there was already a public meeting earlier this year on that one. And there's actually another public meeting that happened this morning for a development near the intersection of Blairstone and Orange Avenue. So there is significant progress moving forward on this, and if citizens do not speak out, it is plausible that we will see rapid development of this parcel of land. So one of the first concerns would be endangered species. So according to the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, there are 4 species that may potentially inhabit this parcel of land. We're not 100% sure. It would, one would need to go out there and look at it, but the city has not done those evaluations yet, and certainly as concerned citizens, we want to make sure that is done so that these species aren't harmed. So the particular species that may be out there are the red cockaded woodpecker, which requires an open longleaf pine ecosystem, and Apalachicola National Forest just to our southwest is their prime habitat. So we know we have that species very close by, and if there's good longleaf pine habitat, they're likely on the property. Similarly, gopher tortoises are another species of that longleaf pine ecosystem, as well as indigo snakes. Wood storks are a threatened migratory species that does occur in Tallahassee and may occur on the property. Again, we're not 100% sure. But given the potential for these species to be on the property, it's critical that if development does occur, that there's a very careful accounting to make sure that no species are harmed, and also careful consideration given to the fact that maybe development is not the right trajectory if any of these species are found. Water quality is another concern. So this entire property sits in the ground watershed of Wakulla Springs, which means that water that soaks into the ground in most of Tallahassee, but particularly in the southern part of Tallahassee, will enter the shallow aquifer, which will eventually discharge out at Wakulla Springs. Wakulla Springs has a known issue with too much nitrogen, which causes algae issues that you can see if you visit the spring shed, the Wakulla Springs State Park, and you go swimming there. You can see that the Vallisneria grass is coated with algae, and so the Department of Environmental Protection has actually set up a restoration plan to try to address this issue called the Wakulla Springs BMAP, and that plan calls for nutrient reductions both in Wakulla County and in Leon counties, and particularly in the southern part of Tallahassee is a known source. Additionally, there was a dye trace done from the tram road spray field that established that there are karst conduits that go up to the southern side of Tallahassee that can deliver water from the karst features down to the springs in a little under 2 months. So what happens, the short answer is, what happens on the southern part of the English property is going to affect Wakulla Springs. And if you develop it and there's insufficient treatment, then it will negatively affect the springs. And we know there's an issue, and so the city is on the hook to lower their nutrient loads. So this potential development would actually increase nutrient loads and would exacerbate the problems at Wakulla Springs. Similarly, there's also known water quality issues for Lake Munson. The northern part of the English property, closer to Orange Avenue, drains into the stormwater conveyance and stream system that flows west and eventually ends up in Wakulla or in Lake Munson. The Florida Department of Environmental Protection understood the problems in Lake Munson and developed the TMDL. TMDL is the target setting, the precursor to a BMAP, but through stormwater permits, the city is also on the hook to address problems in the contributing area of Lake Munson. And similarly, the issue is too many nutrients. So we've got nutrient issues for water leaving both sides of the site. And so if this development does not completely treat the nutrients leaving the site, which would mean not the standard stormwater infrastructure, but they're going to need to put in, advanced stormwater to have any hope of staving off these impacts. But most likely that would not occur, and most likely there will be degradation of our local water bodies as a result. Additionally, this parcel is a wildlife corridor that connects from the portion of the Apalachicola National Forest that's between Crawfordville and Woodville highways, and then that connects to the tram road Sprayfield facility. And then if you go north across Capitol Circle, you can get up to the English property, and then that eventually connects into the Blairstown Forest neighborhood and up into Indian Head. And indeed, if you spend much time over there, there are species that live in that part of town that wouldn't just live in a neighborhood. So, residents report seeing foxes and bobcats and coyotes in that part of the neighborhood, which indicates the importance of this habitat to allowing those species to exist. And if it's all developed, that's going to be lost. So there really is a need, if those ecosystems are going to survive in any sense, to preserve a north-south wildlife corridor. I mean, ideally you wouldn't develop the property, but it's not clear whether that's actually an option, whether it's better to shift the trajectory of the development towards a better track, or to, try to stop it completely. They're both viable options, but certainly maintaining a good wildlife corridor in the north-south direction will be critical. Otherwise, there'll be a significant loss of urban wildlife. And finally, how can you get involved? So for the initial land use zoning change, it's called the English Property PUD. There's a meeting on that on November 10th at 5 p.m. and each citizen will be allotted 3 minutes to speak if you are comfortable doing so. If you're willing and able to speak, hearing your voice will definitely help the commissioners understand the breadth of the citizens of Tallahassee's concerns. Additionally, you can reach out to your commissioners before the meeting to let them know your concerns additionally. I should also mention that this land use change is not the only step, because even if it goes through, there's still a permitting required for each individual development. And at the stage of the land use change, a number of the concerns I raised today are not actually considered. So endangered species and water quality, those concerns are addressed at the individual project level, not at the land use zoning level. And so those considerations we may have to save if we are unable to stop the land use zoning change. So there are many opportunities to state your opinion and to change the trajectory of this planned development. And your voice matters, and there's a few of us met with the city and we were able to have a productive discussion with them, and a small number of concerned citizens here really can make a difference. So thank you for hearing this out and talking with the other folks who are trying to organize this effort. And if you're willing and able, please join us at that meeting, and we'll see what we can do and see if we can argue for a better option here. Thank you for your time.